You know what? I understand what it was meant, the kernel of political correctness and this aspiring to be better in our political discourse, and I agree with that. I agree we have to do a little bit better. But the point when you have people becoming the you're offensive police, that's offensive, that's offensive, that's offensive. Well, you know what? You know what's offensive? Children in Aleppo getting bombed to death. That's what's offensive. Exactly. And when people realize that there are other problems in this world that we have to worry about, other than, well, did I say the right thing when I said Happy Holidays or Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah? I have to worry about people actually dying or life and death decisions. Let's worry about those decisions first. Right. As a country, as a people, as a culture, let's worry about those important decisions before we worry about whether somebody was offended.
Hey, welcome back. It's a Table Talk Tuesday. We're showing those regular people's views from right after the election. And believe it or not only did we have regular good old Americans, that was recently convicted Rich Luthman giving his views on political correctness. And he was a great contributor to Table Talk.
Yeah, you have to wonder, maybe, and look, Rich is a friend of mine too, but you have to wonder if maybe people were a little more worried about staying out of prison instead of whether we say Happy Holidays or not. Maybe that's a better use of
Probably
their time.
Was. And a much better use of our time is bringing on guests that know where the rubber meets the road. And this guy is one of them. And if he's around, you don't want to be the rubber or the road. You definitely don't want to be in between them because he's a behemoth of a man. And he's a behemoth of a political strategist, consultant, and great article you wrote recently on Melania. Jadan Horyn joins us today. And as much as we hate it, we're talking impeachment, Jadan. And, we had a great time celebrating Frankie's wedding the other night, all of us, but now we're back to business, okay? What do we do here with this impeachment stuff?
Nancy Pelosi has a problem. She understands that Democrats in swing districts are vulnerable. And so for the first time in the history of our country, the House of Representatives is attempting to impeach the president without actually holding a vote for an inquiry into impeaching the president. And she's running around screaming obstruction. Adam Schiff is screaming obstruction. But the fact of the matter is that before you can obstruct something, you actually need to have the authority, the power, and hold the vote to do an inquiry to get the documents in the first place.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's just normal oversight.
Right. This is like the Fed's FBI comes to you and says, hey, we're thinking about indicting you. We haven't indicted you yet, but we want your emails, we want your text messages, we want your bank records. Well, hey, hang on a minute. Am I indicted? No. But we still want all this information from you.
Oh, hang on, you can do what Hillary Clinton did and just take hammers and, bleach bit and destroy your phones and all the evidence that is actually government property, and the FBI can do absolutely nothing. So I think you're exactly right. Not to mention, we just need to talk about the judicial process. Congress has the authority to subpoena. A subpoena is not the same as a requirement that you go and that you absolutely provide the information. Because legally, a subpoena can be appealed. Because like anything, any court process, any judicial process, any subpoena process, you ask for the moon, and they come back and they say, look, some of this is executive privilege, some of this is private, information, and then it's adjudicated. Instead, they're saying they want everything, unprecedented access to the executive branch, which separation of powers in this country, we need to understand that each branch is co-equal, so they have the right to reject the other branch. And they can come back and say, look, some of this stuff is sensitive. Unprecedented that we have a president release transcripts of a phone call with a foreign leader, which is inherently the prerogative of our executive to speak to foreign leaders. And yet he did it in order to assuage the fears that somehow he was playing politics like the previous administration was with foreigners and foreign leaders when it comes to the election.
And, in terms of releasing that transcript, I really mostly disagree with that decision because I think it sets such a horrible precedent for why would any foreign leader ever trust what they can say to any American president. And I would say the same thing, honestly, if this was President Obama or President Clinton or President Bush. But I think it's terrible that they did release that document. But let's talk about what's happening today. The House wanted Ambassador Sondland, who apparently had some information about this, and it gets almost, I think, to most regular folks,
don't
like
get into
white
the
noise.
minutia.
But this is the news as of today. So Ambassador Sondland, they wanted him to testify. The State Department says, no, you can't testify before Congress. And the president tweeted that he'd be happy to have him testify, but that Adam Schiff and others would make this into a kangaroo court. Where do you think this ends up? Clearly, you've got a pretty good legal head on your shoulders. Do you think he'll end up being forced to comply with this congressional subpoena? Put on your legal analyst hat for us.
I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I
play one on TV.
Exactly.
I would say this. I think it sets a dangerous precedent if our ambassadors are trusted leaders that sit in foreign capitals testify before Congress on private conversations that their boss, the President of the United States, asked them to have with foreign representatives and foreign governments in order to ensure United States interests. I think it sets a terrible precedent because without a doubt, if we go down this line of inquiry, we will have ambassadors called in. We have some 190 ambassadors called in by this Congress because they will not rest until they find one thing that could possibly be construed as wrong, possibly be construed as impeachable, and they will go after it.
Before we run out of time, Jadan, I want to, it's not just the Democrats that are beating up on Donald Trump today, but Lindsey Graham has been particularly outspoken on TV and on Twitter. Take a look at this tweet about the president's decision to withdraw some troops from the northern part of Syria. Lindsey Graham basically saying Syria would fall into chaos, calling into illusion the nemesis of President Trump, Barack Obama. He's saying that this is exactly what Barack Obama did with Iraq. Democrats and Republicans beating him up on this. We're going to get into it in a big way at 1 o'clock, or Eastern. What's your take on the whole Syria situation?
Look, the Republican foreign policy establishment, and actually the foreign policy establishment in general, is pro-war. This president is not. The American people are not. And our involvement in Syria was predicated on a humanitarian interest. And it's moved beyond that. There are complex geopolitical circumstances there. The Kurds, the Turks are in NATO. If the treaty is worth anything, we should be able to trust our allies to deal with the Syria situation. The fact of the matter is that we have allies who we don't trust, and we have military over there that we cannot trust, i.e. the Kurds, to deal with each other.
Okay. Well, Jadan always gives us, he brings the pain, of course, and always gives us fantastic commentary. Your thoughts are always welcome here, my friend. Thank you so much. You're the man. Your wife did a great job helping us polish off all the extra champagne left over from Frankie's wedding. And we had some non-English conversations about politics towards the end of that night as well.
Indeed.
I think we were all speaking in tongues,
actually. I believe so.
That's what happens when you celebrate Frankie and Rachel. It was a wonderful wedding. It's a wonderful day. It's a Table Talk Tuesday. We're going to take a quick break. Come back at you right after this.